What is going on, everybody? Today I am going to show you what I believe is the easiest way to solo flawless the new Duality dungeon. This is also going to be for season 17 if you're watching this in the future. It is a little bit easier this season just because of the artifact mod Classy Restoration. Pretty much right now you're seeing my loadout on screen. I'm using a fast firing fusion. The Riptide is pretty good. I don't have a great roll on it, but I do like fast firing fusions compared to something like Deliverance, which shoots a little slower. The Callus mini tool, I'm using that with Incandescent and Grave Robber. You'll see why in just a second here. And then I'm using the Lament. This loadout does not change throughout the entire dungeon, so you could just slap this on, be great. I feel like the Lament isn't incredible in the final boss fight, so if you want to, you can switch to Storm Chaser if you feel more comfortable with that. But if we look in the subclass here, I'm using Gambler's Dodge with Blade Barrage, Triple Jump, Knife Trick, which is important there. You can use whatever grenade you want, or you could even use Gunpowder Gamble if you like that, but I like the 5 fragment slots, and I just use it with On Your Mark and Knock them down. Ember of Singeing is a really important one. Torches is also good as well, but this is the most important one. So Empyrean, solar weapon or ability final blows extend the duration of your restoration and radiant effects applied to you. Now the reason I use this one is because I'm using Callus mini tool. Every single time I get a kill with Callus mini tool, it extends my restoration and radiant, so I have that up pretty much all the time. And then you want more scorch stacks, and then this is also pretty important as well. Defeating scorch targets grants melee energy, because we're going to be going invisible constantly with this build with our melee. Another thing you want to make sure about, just make sure you have 100 resilience, because that's pretty big here. But the bread and butter of this build is the Assassin's Cowl. I'm sure you guys have seen a lot about this in the dungeon, but it is incredible. On here, I just have a mobility mod with 2 hands on. I get my super extremely quick with this build, and then Elemental Light just because I had the slot for it. Here, we're going to be using 2 focusing strikes because we are going to get our class ability back so fast with all the melees that we throw out, as well as a melee well maker to just make a bunch of wells. In here, don't really need too much, just really Phantom Might for your weapon damage. That's pretty important. Armor of the Dying Star and Concussive Dampener work. Here, you're going to want to put Bountiful Wells. That's the most important thing here, and you have a lot of room for a mod for resilience there, which is great. These 2 aren't that important, but the most important thing is, of course, Classy Restoration. You'll see in the gameplay how big this is with first survivability, and then also I'm just increasing my resilience to get it to 100 as well. This one is also great. If you have room for like Well of Life or something, that'd be great, but I only had 1 left, so Well of Ordnance, but you could switch that out with Well of Life if you want. Alright, so now we are on to the first encounter. One thing I did want to point out before I got into this is I'm not going to go through the mechanics of the fight all that much. I'm assuming that if you're trying to solo flawless the dungeon, you know the mechanics of everything, and you probably should figure that out before even trying to get a solo flawless. But for the first encounter, one thing I also did want to point out is that I streamed my solo flawless live, and someone in chat actually let me know that using a 900 RPM SMG, sometimes the bell can actually kill you out of nowhere. So in the clip, if you see me shoot a couple bullets at the bell and then knife it, it's because I didn't want to get killed randomly by the 900 RPM SMG. If you have another SMG you'd rather use that's solar, go for it. You could also use the Cartesian coordinate and the submission. That's actually what I ran on my first run, and it worked really well. But the main thing about this encounter is you really just want to play it as safe as possible, and that's really the theme throughout the entire dungeon in general. That's why Assassin's Cowl is so incredible for this solo flawless. So every time your powered melee is up, I would just use it. It allows you to go invisible, it spawns a bunch of wells, and you get a nice burst of heal. If you ever don't get a kill with your knife and you don't go invis, don't worry, you can just dodge, you get restoration ×2, and you get your knife back. So you're basically unkillable, and you can extend your restoration ×2 by using your throwing knife or getting callous mini tool kills. One tip that I have is while you're in the Nightmare Realm is to just go and kill the Bell Keepers first, and then use your mini-map to find where the standard bearers are, because they can hide in their rooms that they're in. When you eventually go into the Nightmare Realm to kill the Shades, you just want to use that fast firing fusion, because this will one-shot those Shades as long as you hit all of your bolts. Another important note is that if you have Radiant up, you can also one-shot the Bell Keepers with that fusion. Another thing I would say is during the damage phase, you can consistently have Radiant up by just stopping boss damage for a quick second and getting a throwing knife kill on one of the wall that's around you. This will give you a free 25% damage boost, which is nice for Lament. And I would always give yourself at least 10 to 15 seconds to get back to the bell after damaging, just because it can take a while. I would repeat this. I got it done in 4 phases in both of the solo flawless runs that I did. In this one you're seeing here, my first damage phase was absolutely horrible, and I still got the 4 phase, so you can probably get it done in 3. At this point, I'm going to let the rest of the gameplay play out for this one cycle, just so you can see how it goes, and then we'll get into the second encounter. Now, congratulations, you are finally on to the second encounter. In my opinion, this is probably the hardest encounter, just because there are 3 bosses, there's more opportunity for you to mess up. And I would say the most difficult part of this encounter in general is getting the standard bearer in the Nightmare Realm and getting back to the bell before the timer gets to 0. So in my mind, the most effective way to do this is to, when you're not in the Nightmare Realm, find the 2 symbols you need. Pick one of them, and then find the side you have to go to before going into the Nightmare Realm. If you didn't know, there are actually 4 walls on each of the 4 sides that tell you which symbol corresponds with that inside the Nightmare Realm. I would find the one side that you want to go to and the one that you need, and then shoot the bell that is closest to that side. Once you shoot that bell, I would run directly to the underside of the opposite bell, because that is where the bell keepers are going to spawn. They always spawn on the opposite side. From there, I would start on the side opposite of the symbol that you eventually have to go to, just to minimize the amount of running around you have to do to eventually finish this encounter. When you get to the side with the standard bearer that you actually need to kill, there are 2 things that you could possibly do. The first one is what I usually do on the first time I go in, is I would either super the Colossus, or I could super the entire wave of ads, just to speed up this process and make it a little easier. I use Blade Barrage, obviously, so you can easily clear out that entire room with just one Blade Barrage and then have to kill the Colossus. The second time around, though, I usually save my super for the damage phase, so I would just shoot the shields of the Cabal in the middle of the shield so that they start retracting, and then I would throw a throwing knife at them, kill them. I go invisible so they don't know where I'm at. I get wells, get my abilities back real quick, and it's very, very fast that way as well. Once you eventually kill all the ads and you get the standard bearer, I would just throw a knife at the dogs that always come at you once you kill the bearer, and that'll make you invis, and it makes it a lot easier to get back to the bell. When you are actually inside during the damage phase, just take it slow. Another thing that I did in the first encounter that translates over to this one is you can constantly have Radiant up, and you can constantly have Restoration 2 up as well. You can dodge, get a couple kills with your throwing knife. You have Restoration times 2 at 12 seconds. You also have Radiant around 15 seconds. You can then go in and use Lament on the boss. They will jump around a lot, so just be careful of that. And also avoid ledges because the boss can boop you off. So if the boss is usually near a ledge, that's when I'm running around getting throwing knife kills, going invisible, and extending my Radiant and Restoration. This is not timed at all, so just take it slow, be careful, and you will get through this encounter no problem. I'm going to let it play out so that you can see one cycle, and then we're going to go on the Keitel. So at this point in the run, I believe that you've actually passed the hardest part. But I would be lying to you if I didn't tell you that I haven't died in this fight before. The absolute biggest tip that I can give you for this fight is to never, and I mean never, try to kill a Bellkeeper with your back turned to an area where you can fall to your death. Every time at this point I kill a Bellkeeper, I make sure my back is to the middle of the arena so that there is no possible way that I can get booped off the map. Trust me, it is way too painful to go through that after you've spent an hour getting to that point. Other than that, a majority of the fight is just a lot of the same. Just use your powered melee to go invis as much as possible to stay safe. The symbols will spawn in the middle of the room outside of the Nightmare Realm. I always grab 2 at a time while in the Nightmare Realm. But before I even go in, I shoot the bell from one of the platforms that I know one of the standard bearer is going to spawn on once I get teleported into the realm. If you didn't know at this point, the symbol of the standard bearer is above the door on the sniper platform in the outside version of the nightmare realm. I always double and triple check that I know exactly which symbols I need before going into the realm, because if you kill the wrong bearer, you will lose a lot of time in the nightmare realm and it can really screw you over. Once you've done 2 phases of that, it's time for damage. Sometimes it can be difficult to kill all the bell keepers before Keitel gets to the bell that she is intending to go to. In order to make this easier, I recommend that after you shoot the big bell to start the damage phase, you shoot one of the smaller bells, just to put you in the nightmare realm a few seconds earlier. This gives you additional time to actually kill the bell keepers, and I always start by killing the bell keepers in the middle, and then I go to whatever side she ends up pointing towards. I also usually stop my damage phase a couple seconds short in the first one, like the 1 and 2nd damage phase, just to give me more time to kill the remaining bell keepers. Another important note, there is no enrage in this fight, so if at any point during the damage you feel like you're going to die to Keitel because of her stomp, or the more dangerous thing is the snipers on the sides, just run away. It's not that big of a deal if Keitel escapes, because there is no enrage in this fight, and you can always just go through the process. It takes around 5 minutes to get another damage phase. Trust me, there's no reason to die this far into the run. I made this mistake on my first run trying to go for solo flawless, just to get a little bit of extra damage, and it was 100% not worth it. I'm going to let this play out from this point on, just so that you can see one cycle, and I'll probably even show you the kill. But other than that, I hope this video helped you out. I believe Hunter is the easiest to get this done on, and I would get it done this season because of Class C Restoration. If you have any more tips, feel free to put them down in the comment section. Also, if this helped you out, let me know down in the comment section as well. Other than that, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. If you want to like and subscribe, go for it. Not necessary, but it does really help out the channel here. I appreciate every single one of you that made it this far into the video, and everybody that watched my stream last week. That's why I made this video here today, just because a lot of people were asking about my build, so here it is. I look forward to seeing all of you guys in the future, and I hope you have a great rest of your night.
returned to reality.